mean, it's just an amazing thing, and you can actually see things that run and spin and work. And
when I met Aaron, and I just met him, what he said is, if you want to have something that's working, you want to meet people who are doing things, you want to see things that are working. This is it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I've seen demos, but done in a way where here's the paper, but here's the story.
Yeah.
Like what Jeff Miller did this morning.
Oh yeah,
was amazing.
That was an awesome presentation.
Wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
It was, because it had a little bit of humor and a little bit of this
See,
and a little bit of
Jeff
that.
and I talk. We've never met each other personally, but we've been talking on the phone for at least 5 years.
Okay.
You know, we send each other stuff. He needed some Met glass. I sent him that. You know, we bang back and forth and each other's website. And then when we got to meet, it's just like long lost brother. You know.
He's a character. He's just,
he's
got quite the personality,
which
is really, really, really sweet.
Exactly. Well, and that's what makes life fun. People
Isn't
like
it?
Jeffrey, right?
No, it does. It does. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you love about the conference, and who are you? What brings you here?
Anyway, my name's Paul Babcock, and scientific, religious, institutional heretic. And I've been into this understanding physics and the free energy movement for a long, long time. I'm basically a driving force in my life for about 30 years. And it's what I do in the conference. I was in groundhog mode for many years, and Peter and Aaron finally talked me into coming, I found these conferences to be very powerful, very, very enlightening and very powerful for a lot of people. So I try to share what I know, and it's brought, you give, you get. So everything I give here, I get back 100-fold over the years period, so connected up with a huge network, and it's just been a really great thing to really move the movement forward, because all the really good people, all the ones with the heart and the soul that really know what they're doing, come here.
You come here. So here's a question. You come here, and they want you to present for a particular reason. So what is your unique flavor, or that you bring, that people would look to you for?
Well, I've developed a theory model that really explains all this stuff, and that was a long process.
What's all this stuff? People don't know what all this stuff is.
Well, all this stuff is basically all these free energy devices, and there's all kinds of from Newman to just on and on and on, Tesla, Newman. It's really all the same basic theory. It's all the same basic science, and the deal is nobody could pull it all together into a cohesive theory model, and that's what I've really done. So when I see all these devices and whatnot, I can go in a matter of maybe a day or two, I can tell you exactly what they work, what principles they're built on. So there's about 4 basic principles that work through.
What are the basic principles that
one is eliminating Lenz reactions, and which is Newton's third law. Newton's third law doesn't apply to magnetics. Magnetism has energy value. Mm-hmm. It's about recovery and recirculation of energy, using electricity multiple times. Right now, when you pull power out of your wall socket at your house, it goes right back to the grid, and it only gets used once. But it can be recaptured, recirculated, reused, and you get massive amounts of work out of the same electrical charge over and over again.
Which is how the universe works.
Very much so.
Okay.
And then then there's the 0-point energy devices, and so basically what I've done is I've proven that almost all of these machines that have been built can be explained within all the known laws of physics, which is I do. So one of my favorite things to do is give PhDs intellectual beatings. Nobody will get in the boxing ring with me anymore, so I'm the reigning champ.
Okay.
But I've been doing electronics since I was 10 years old, and I loved it. It turned into a hobby, and I got bit with, like I mentioned, the Reich bug, and so I've always was born with a sense of purpose that just drove me nuts, because I didn't know what it was for a long time, but it all worked out over the end, and life put me where I needed to be to learn what I needed to learn, and I had a great career in electronics, still do. you know, and then, you know, to make a long story short, I'd had kind of a bad run of luck for a few years, and everything I touched turned to mud, and, you know, broken relationships and all that, and pretty much the big hole, he just stripped me down to bare. And then there I was in Alaska. I got hurt in an accident.
It goes in all those, the threes,
Yeah,
or whatever, the career, the relationships.
And then,
Yeah.
so I was working it out where I'd been living in Hawaii for a while, so I tried to work a system where I lived in Hawaii 9 months out of the year, worked in Alaska.
You're going from extremes, from hot to
Yeah,
cold.
come to Alaska in the summer, because I did spend 25 years living in Alaska, so. But Big Holy had different plans. There ain't no way you're gonna work 3 months a year and be a lazy beach bum and not, you know, stick with my plan for you, right? So.
It's whacking you to get.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I wound up in this little cabin, dirt broke, coldest winter in Alaskan history, dead right arm, couldn't work hardly, and all I had was a kerosene lamp and a little AM radio and a wood stove between me and certain death, and you know, it's cold out, 50 below zero, right? So lo and behold, I'm listening to there was a radio host there, and actually a lot of people, his name is Anthony J. Hilder. He was kind of the Art Bell of Alaska at the time, and so they said, we're having this guest on tonight. He's created a free energy machine, which instantly perked my ears because I've been studying Tesla and everything for years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then so along comes this Joseph Newman interview,
Yeah.
and he was, I mean, I got what he was saying, right? I mean, I just absolutely got what he was saying. And so I was hooked, and he kept saying, just spend $50 and buy my book. Because he had a lot of people laughing at him when we were calling in and stuff. So I, you know, as broke as ever, I managed to scrape up $50 and got the book ordered. And when it caught to me, there's about 5 pages in it where there was just this very simple observation he made that altered my world right there. It was just an amazing revelation. It was like getting hit inside the head with a frying pan.
Had the aha moment.
Yeah, that aha moment. And from that moment, I had a plan, because I'm heavily into electronic theory, right? So I've been looking for a hole in the wall, right? Electrical theory is, I mean, it's just like every brick matches. There's no cracks, no places. You know, it's all algebraic formulas, and man, they all mix, you know, like gears in a machine, man. There's not much room for slop. And I'd been looking for it because I'd seen
I love that.
I'd seen anomalies as a technician and an engineer that I just could not explain. I'd see these huge, especially when I was working with heavy DC systems, I'd see these huge bursts of energies that could evaporate steel beams. And I could never freaking figure out why, you know, because it seemed to me it was like some shift in Ohm's law. There was something going on, and I was trying to figure it out. Well, then Joseph Newman's little observation, which basically states that the amount of energy, you can expend a lot of energy and still get a small magnetic field, or you can spend a bit of energy and have a massive magnetic field. That magnetism is dependent on mass. Mm-hmm. And that was the crack in the wall, man. That was the rabbit hole. And I just exactly understood what it meant. And I dived down that hole, and I've never looked back since.
So, okay, for the layperson who doesn't know what that rabbit hole is, is there a simple explanation?
Yeah, it means that, if you have a lot of magnetism, it represents an energy value. And that's where physicists lie to us. They say magnetism has no energy value. But if I have a big magnetic field in a coil, and I collapse it, I can extract that energy out and get it. So I started running the math of resistance to magnetic coils, and I figured out that I hit a certain point. If I build a coil right, and I do the system right, that coil will actually give me more energy out of it than I put into it, all within the known laws of physics, which was a serious revelation. So I started putting this into all the Ohm's law equations and everything, and I created, in fact, one of my first presentations was about that. So once I had this math model, mm-hmm. where I, threw the old physics out and put in Newman's, take on it, mm-hmm. then I just knew exactly the way to go, and I've never stopped since.
Here's the one thing that I think is interesting. When I do the magazine that I do, Science to Sage, I always try to equate it to the human body. Because I think all systems within the systems actually operate on a lot of the same principles.
Oh, absolutely.
So how would you equate that to the human body?
The human body, well, the human body is an incredible mechanism, but here's the limitation of physics. According to the physicists, we're meat puppets, right?
Right.
So there's this place where our three-dimensional world stops, and our three-dimensional world is a product of a greater energy field, a greater thing. And as souls, we have our astral body, we have our physical body, and our astral body in fact, all the human body is actually, the human being is a composite of two bodies that are totally electromagnetic, and we're electromagnetism and light in a certain form of it.
Right.
And so this electromagnetic phenomenon and light that biology consists of is one octave up from conventional three-dimensional electromagnetic and light phenomena. So there's this place, and that's where the 0 point field and all this stuff starts.
Okay.
And so that's why we are energy generators. And so there's no such thing as entropy. We constantly absorb and re-radiate energy. And so we're an energy conduit, and so can magnetic mass be an energy conduit. You can actually extract the energy out of it it's like a beer that never runs out.
Right.
And we're a beer that never runs out until we're ready to check out.
Yeah.
And magnetism is the same way. It's a beer that never runs out. So once you know how to, but Mother Nature, being the way she is, and the way physics works, it's all designed to where molecules and electrons actually keep this energy field in check to maintain this balance, because otherwise the universe would disintegrate. So Mother Nature actually pits itself to actually govern itself. And in the world of physics, the govern two of them. One is resistance, and the other is Lenz reactions, or Newton's third law, which isn't a law, even though they'll tell you that. And that keeps the universe balanced. And so the Mother Nature, everything works in a closed loop system in nature, just to maintain balance. But on this edge, where this octave of energy jumps, that's where it all really happens. But in any of the, that's the energy source that supplies it. So energy comes into our world and it leaves in a very controlled manner, and electrons do this regulation.
Can I ask a question? Because
Yeah.
I did an article one time in the magazine from a gentleman, and there's a difference between this lens that's this way and then the lens that goes this way. So when you're looking, and then I should, whatever that is, right? I mean, you can explain it on the. But what happens is our eyeball is this way, which is going round this way. But when you look into space, if you look at it like different,
Through a convex lens, yeah.
then you actually can see outer space. But the way we do, we see our inner space. So you're triggering something for me is how we relate to time and space,
Which is merely an illusion.
which is our lens and how our perception.
Yeah. Our physical senses are merry tricksters. They're designed to eliminate information. Very narrow focused information. And that's where science fails, because they've chopped, basically what they've done, we have this whole range of fantastic senses, right?
Which are all electric.
All electric, and it's just a whole range of them. But what science has done is they've chopped their arm off, chopped their leg off, poked an eye out, and then try to use, so they've eliminated their best tools. And since our senses are merry tricksters, and all molecular, anything that's a molecule that we can perceive because of this synchronized oscillation, looks like it's all contained within the three-dimensional world, right? So scientists, they say, if I can't see it, feel it, touch it, or hear it with my physical senses, it doesn't exist. Well, just poke your freaking eyes out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's this whole range, and so to me, there's no way that you can actually understand how the universe works, work in that high energy levels, understand what understand this energy level, the orgone level, and all this other stuff that's just on the edge of perception. You cannot detect with scientific instruments or your eyes, your ears, your mouth, or touch or feel. So basically what they've done is handicap themselves, and so they're trying to tell you that they're the purveyors of all things, universal in existence, and they're freaking morons.
No, it's actually like our lens is not able to go outward.
And there's a purpose for that, because that's the construction of the purposeful illusion. See, we live
in separation.
We live in a camouflage universe, and our universe is designed. It reacts to our creative energy, our thoughts. We put it out, and it comes back.
So we're like in our own essence, like a small creator.
You are not just a small creator.
You're a big creator of an atom. Ah, this goes back to your talk.
Exactly.
Exactly, but there's a perception here of understanding, which is, I think, elemental.
Well, and see, that's where the 40 years of reading Seth gave me an advantage over everybody else. And I'll tell you the story. I never fully went into the story of how those books found me. So here I am in college, right? 19. And I'd always been into reading psychic books and stuff. But so, I'd kind of got myself a little trouble, and party animal, and, beer 101, women 101, and was having some confusion in life, and out of nowhere I started having astral projections. Like I was sitting in my, and they just literally scared the hell out. And if I looked back to my childhood, I would remember. But anyway, so I'm sitting there in my chair right after school, and I fall into a little nap, and I literally fell out of my body, was sitting in my astral body, looking up off the floor at me, which was fairly much a freak out moment. So it's like, oh man, dropped too much acid, smoked too much dope. And that whole deal, and so I got back up in my chair, kind of rattled, and I said right then the most sincere prayer of my life. I says, I need to know what's going on with this stuff. And instantly this voice booms into my head. It says, you need to read a book. And before I knew it, this force literally picked me off my feet, and it was like a blowing wind. And I had nowhere, so I went out the front door, hit the sidewalk, and it's go to the Circle K, because 2 blocks down the road was this convenience store. And it was like 100-mile-an-hour wind at my back, and I wasn't even sure my feet were touching the ground. And it blew me down there, and I walked into the Circle K, booked Circle K, walked up to the book rack, and turned around, and there was Jane Roberts' little paperback book, The Education of Oversoul 7. And I read that book, and in one day, I was a completely transformed human being. Because within that book, for the right people that it's meant for, are encoded syllables and symbols that will trigger your brain, and it triggered mine no end. And I literally transformed. So I read that thing about 5 times in 2 weeks. So I'm sitting there about 2 weeks later, and I'm looking at it, it says, from the teachings of Seth, and I go, who is this Seth guy? And immediately this voice booms into my head and says, you need to go to the Phoenix Library, which was about 5 blocks from me. I'd never been in there in my life. So same thing, man. It's just like this force blowing me to the library. And I walked into this huge library built with all these Greek columns. I mean, just rows, just aisles and aisles and aisles and aisles of books. And that force just poof, turned me at the right place, poof, down this long row of books, poof, spun me around, and there was the Seth material staring me right in the face. wow, I guess, I mean literally staring me right in the face. And I pulled it out and I read 2 pages, went, got a library card and checked it out, and poof, man, I just instantly knew that I could trust that material to be true and correct, and it was going to, and I just so transformed my life so fast. To this day, I just became the total fan. I mean, the total. And I've absorbed it, and it's incredibly in-depth, deep material that's just not for everybody.